controversy, things that get people flared up. I'm going to say the thing that people won't normally say. I'm going to say the thing the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear while reacting to GamerRanks' 10 most controversial games that sold well.
It's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now,
okay.
I don't know about you, but when I think about controversy, I don't really think of Pokemon. That being said,
I'm sorry. Did you know that they are demons? Did you know that? Did you know that they're summoning demons and Satan in those games? Maybe you should.
And Violet had every reason to be controversial releases. Why? Because Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was released with an unexcusable number of bugs, and the performance was also awful. I mean, it's not good now. To their credit, they've fixed a lot of bugs and eliminated a lot of unnecessary jank in
I think it's crazy that they haven't fixed the performance yet. Like, if you go into this game now, it still chugs. It still chugs like crazy. The frame rate actually somehow was even worse than the teal mask. It felt for me. I don't know if it felt like that for all of you. Maybe you didn't buy it. That's also fine. But it felt crazy chuggy. And that's insane because there's a massive mountain in the middle of the map. So they should be able to use the memory distribution. They should be able to program around it so that you only have the things rendered in the game that need to be. And the massive mountain should prevent the far off landscapes from having to be rendered. But it chugs even more. It's really weird.
Patching the game, but it still doesn't run great. Like, not a whole lot of video games get the Washington Post, a mainstream paper of good repute, I believe the second largest newspaper in the United States, to point out that it has historically bad graphics.
We can't give Game Freak a pass.
We talked about it in another video, but there are a number of other games on the Switch that are much more graphically intensive than Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that run much better. It's certainly not new hardware, but Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are not games that should be pushing
it's not the Switch.
Max.
The system problem is a problem. I mean, listen, it's old hardware. They came in with old hardware off the bat when they made the Switch. They were like, hey, give me the shitty stuff when they made the Switch to make it cheaper, and that's fine. It's not all about the graphics, people would say. I hear you screaming from the distance. I don't play Pokemon games for the graphics. I play it for the really good, the really awesome. I like the Pokemon, actually, and that's fine. Maybe you don't play it for the graphics, but wouldn't it be nice if it did look good? Wouldn't it be so cool it looked good for once? What if we had one good Pokemon looking game? Wouldn't that be sick? I think that would be great. And there's some really good parts about Scarlet and Violet. It's fun. There's clearly something that's making everyone come back because it sold 22 million copies. So clearly people like it. But wouldn't it be really sick if there was one that ran well, looked good, at least like the other Switch games do? I feel like we're capable of it. Wouldn't it be cool?
Still, as of earlier this month, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was on the brink of surpassing Pokemon Sword and Shield sales. Nintendo
22 million, baby.
Quarterly financial reports on August 2nd, and Pokemon Sword and Shield had sold just under 26 million units.
Legends Arceus? Okay, Legends Arceus was very fun. It was different, and I liked it, and I hope they do more stuff like that, but maybe include online battling so I can continue to make my Then We Fight videos that make a lot of views and money. But it didn't look good. It was not a looker. In comparison to all the other Switch games, it was not a looker. Let's be honest.
Scarlet and Violet is just about to hit 23 million. Now keep in mind, Sword and Shield was released in 2019, and Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was released almost exactly 3 years later, and there's about no chance it's not going to surpass Sword.
The one thing I can't get over about Pokemon games is how they still have the NPCs that fucking twiddle on the spot. They roll around like they're on a computer chair of some kind. Why do we still have NPCs that are like, turn like this? Why do we still have NPCs that walk around, look at something, and then go, and then turn like this? How is that even still, how is that possible? I don't understand it. It boggles my mind that we still have those NPCs.
If it hasn't already. I'm sure when the next quarterly reports come out, we will find that that is the case. So if people wonder exactly why they haven't really thrown a ton of money at fixing it, it's because clearly it hasn't stopped anybody from
they don't have to.
Not to say it isn't better, but it could be a lot better at this point.
Hey, if you don't like the look of something, if you feel like something isn't worth your money, then don't buy it. I didn't buy Detective Pikachu. I watched someone play it on YouTube. And wow, that game, I'm going to be honest, that game looks like dog shit. But Daniel, what were you expecting? It's a kid's game. But wouldn't it be nice if it was good, though? Wouldn't it be nice if it was good and it looked good and it played good and it had a good gameplay and a good story? Like, wouldn't it be nice? I will say the OST, the musical composers for the Pokemon games, hard carry it. They are like Sisyphus pushing the boulder up the mountain for the Pokemon games because they hit it out the park every single time. The OST, mwah, it's all this OST is already nostalgic to me. How do they do it? How do they do it every time, man? It boggles the mind.
Resident Evil 6. This one's kind of a perfect example.
Oh, dude, this was awful.
What happens when you just don't know what direction you want to go in? Obviously, Resident Evil 6 is kind of doubling down on the action aspects that came out of Resident Evil 4. And I can't help but say that there's stuff in Resident Evil 6 that's good, but as a package, it just doesn't come together.
Did Resident Evil 6 actually sell well in comparison to the other Resident Evil games? Okay, so Resident Evil 6 sold 12 million copies on the original, and the port sold 3.3 million in comparison to 5 selling almost 15 million, and then 5 million with the gold edition. Resident Evil 4 remake sold 5 million. Resident Evil 4, the original, sold 17 million, so it did pretty well for itself. But Michael, why did they make it like this? Why did they make it like a Gears of War action shooter? Like, everyone was making games that are exactly the same, and they do this all the time. The video game industry always goes through these phases where they try and copy each other, and we try and copy what's good. You know, everyone makes a battle royale because battle royales are good, and everyone makes a zombie game because zombie games are big, and then everyone makes a Call of Duty clone when Call of Duty was dominating, and they're like, oh, well, we have to make a super intense sci-fi or action shooter where you can do dodge rolls and then you can bang, 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 bang. And we gotta have big explosions in Resident Evil. We gotta have the biggest explosions, and you do a helicopter section where you do a turret gameplay section where you shoot them with your turret and it's boom, boom, boom. Why do they have to do that? Can't we just make good games that are standalone by themselves? Why do we have to follow trends? Why can't we just do what we know we do good?
There's a lot of different stuff. Different characters all do different things, and not really in a way that's balanced out and works, but rather just kind of scattershot. And I never really hated Resident Evil 6 in the way that a lot of other people do.
Look, there's a fucking jet section. Remember the original Resident Evil game was you alone with one gun in a mansion, and you'd walk around and you had this like chunky tank-like gameplay, and then it changed into this somehow. Not to say that you can't try new things, but
I don't think
this is
going to
jumping the
top
goose.
Any best Resident Evil games list anytime soon. And
I think most people have forgotten about
when it came out, this was a game that caused a massive, insane battle between people and Capcom. People were so mad, but they couldn't stop buying Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 6 is actually one of the more successful singular Resident Evil releases. Resident Evil 6 is bizarre because it sold incredibly well over 10 million units sold. And
2012. That's why. The peak of zombie mania for video games. Everyone was making a zombie game, and this coincided with a peak action gameplay as well. So they just made an action game where you could pilot jets and shit and fire at zombies. And I guess people really like that. But the core of the franchise, it just became forgotten because it was too much like everything else, and it stepped away too much from what made the franchise really good in the first place. Now, this is coming from a person that hasn't really played a whole lot of Resident Evil games. I'm just kind of making a what I guess is the common opinion of most fans, because after this, they had whiplash. They snapped back to reality, and the next Resident Evil game was straight up survival horror. You get no machine guns, you get no jets. You just have to go in to the biohazard place and you hide from the enemies. It's like Outlast. They tried to copy Outlast with the next one. But I mean, Resident Evil 7 was good, though, so people like that.
People were asking the question, is this the end of the Resident Evil series? And number 8, Aliens Colonial Marines. A large amount has been said about this game over the years, but I think it can probably most easily be summed up with the fact that the game that they showed off in 2012, claiming to be showing everyone actual gameplay and that this is what they would be playing when they got the game in their hands,
who's playing this?
So different from what people actually got in their hands
This was such a funny controversy. This was like the first controversies about video games on the internet that was solely based around people lying and not getting what you thought you were going to get on the box. When they showed off the gameplay, everyone was like, oh man, this looks so cool. And it was in development hell for like 10 years or however long it was in development for. And it came out, and this came out, and it coincided with Duke Nukem Forever coming out. And it just showed you that games stuck in development hell for a long period of time are maybe just a lost cause sometimes. Maybe you don't need to release them. Maybe you don't have to pull them out of development hell. Maybe it's okay to just let them die.
That they were sued. Sega and Gearbox Software were
false
sued for
advertisement.
False advertisement. Now, I think it's actually funny where the suit went.
Gearbox was so lucky that they made Borderlands, because if it wasn't for Borderlands, they had nothing.
Sega was basically like, you know, we handed this game over to Gearbox. We thought that this stuff was going to work out, and it didn't. We're going to pay a settlement. Gearbox, on the other hand, was like, no! And to their credit, they actually eventually got the lawsuit dropped. They also claimed that Sega
3 years later
screwed them over, and Randy Pitchford, owner of Gearbox, claimed to have lost between 10 and
Dude, this guy is so annoying. Randy Pitchford has been in so much drama. Again, he's so lucky he had Borderlands. He doesn't really have Borderlands. You don't really have Borderlands. Borderlands doesn't have the same kind of star power that you used to have either.
Of his own money on Colonial Marines. This was kind of the latest in a ridiculous back and forth between Sega and Gearbox that basically had gone on through the entire development, including what's
and
Sega
this is what they
called
spaffed out,
misconduct, moving people off of Colonial Marines onto Borderlands and Duke Nukem Forever while still...
Wait, Gearbox also did Duke Nukem Forever? There's no way. There's no way you make both of those games. You have to be trying to make bad games at that point. There's no way you do that by accident. That's insane.
Collecting money from Sega. I don't know, it was a huge mess. And the game that came out was also a huge mess. In fact, probably the best aspect of it is the INI file error that once you change a typo significantly improves the artificial intelligence. Anyway, to call this game critically panned would be a ridiculous understatement, and yet somehow it managed to sell 1.3 million copies in just a couple of months.
People wanted aliens.
Even though the game is terrible, business analysts regarded it as a commercial success, and that it, alongside Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, which was a very well-received game, might I add.
That was a great game.
Were credited as bringing Sega's profit up 54% and
what?
the company around. And number 7 is Hatred.
Oh, that's
I don't
funny.
know if you remember Hatred. It's kind of a somewhat forgettable game, honestly.
This game
it's
sucks,
a game
man.
that really intentionally tried to be edgy. A game where...
I thought this was ironic edge the first time I saw it, but Hatred is essentially a game where you play as an edgy guy, like an edgy 4chan user who goes on a poll, but you go out and shoot random civilians. And that's it. You go and shoot random civilians. And I thought it was going to be ironically edgy, and it was going to speak to the fact that being ironically edgy is like not funny, it's not entertaining at all, and you just kind of look like a dickhead most of the time. But it wasn't even ironically edgy. It was genuinely trying to be like cool. You're like, I'm so edgy. I go out and I have my leather trench coat and I have guns. I'm gonna shoot civilians because I'm the kind of guy that does that. I'm an anarchist. I go against what the people say.
You are a guy who hates humanity and go on an isometric humanity killing spree, kind of a gothic postal. And rather than make a great game that sort of is self-aware about what it exactly is,
like, this is taking all the fun away from going on random violent rampages in video games. Because we've all had that moment where we make a quick save in Oblivion or Skyrim, or we add the cheats into GTA, we spawn a tank, and we just go around and we unload on everything. We just have like a random little violent spree. This is the random violent spree, but it takes itself way too seriously, and there's no gameplay to actually go around that to make the random violent spree impressive or cool. I think Twitch did have to make changes because of this game. Yeah, it's Hatred banned. I think they banned adult-only games, and it was rated adult only. Honestly, I mean, it sucks. It's not a good game. I don't think anyone wants to play it because it's not very entertaining anyway. The entire thing is just kill civilians, and that's it. That's literally it. It's not even good from the fact that, oh, I'm morally against it because killing civilians is bad, which it is. Don't get me wrong. Killing civilians is a bad thing, and you should not be doing it. But it's just bad from the standpoint of just not entertaining gameplay. Like, what's so fun about running around shooting random defenseless people that can't do anything about it if there's not some kind of story or narrative to go along with it that you maybe blow off in order to do that because you want to blow off a little bit of steam. Like, it's not GTA, it's not Skyrim, it's not Fallout, it's not make a quick save and go a little crazy and then reload your save and play the game normally again. It's just, this is it. That is all you get. And there's just nothing of value to go along with it. In GTA, it's different because those sprees of random violence are accompanied by, all right, I'm going to take a break from playing the game normally in order to just do this, have a little fun. But once you do it for a certain period of time, it gets tired. It gets boring after like 10 minutes of GTA random violence sprees. You're like, okay, I get it now. Like, I spawn a tank, I start going crazy, I get 6 wanted levels on the police broadcaster, and then that's it. That's all the entertainment. That's all you get, right? Once you've got that, there's nothing more. You can't escalate that anymore. You can't go any further. So a game that is solely based around just killing civilians and just do violence, that's the only thing you have. That's the only gameplay there is. And you get it. You're like, okay, I get it now. And then you move on. 10 minutes of fun, max.
Number 6, do you not have phones? Remember the Diablo Immortal presentation where Blizzard fumbled the ball with the best of them? Or, I don't know, maybe the worst of them? Well, Diablo Immortal is a free-to-play game, so obviously we can't give you sales, per se. Nobody bought Diablo Immortal.
I love how mobile games are always like, dude, guys, we've done it! 70 billion downloads, everyone! Thank you so much for 7.2 trillion downloads, guys. We really appreciate it. 7 quadrillion downloads, everyone. We did it, but they don't actually tell you how many people are actually playing the game. The amount of downloads you get doesn't matter because the game is free. Anyone can download a free game. That means nothing. But how many people are actually playing your game? They don't really say that much. They just say, oh, we did 7 quadrillion downloads. Thank you so much. We're going to give you 50 extra gems so you can do one more pull on the slot machine jingle.
But as a free-to-play game, it of course has a monetization scheme in it. And holy hell, back in June, mobile analytics...
Didn't it cost like $1,000 to max out your character? No, wait! Didn't it cost like $100,000 to fully max out your character in this game?
Platform data.ai released numbers to show that Diablo Immortal had been downloaded about 22 million times. And
I guess they do have phones.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of $525 million. That's over $500 million. In fact, it is among the top 20 titles to have reached 500 million fastest. When you consider just how many mobile games there are, that's crazy. Perhaps crazier is that although the game is not very well liked in the PC market, it is in the mobile market. It's sitting at a 4.6 on Google Play right now, out of 5.
I'm sorry, Diablo Immortal actually requires over $500,000 to max character, while many believed it would take almost $100,000 to max a Diablo Immortal character. One player reveals it may take much more money. Oh, guys, no, it's only $500,000. You guys have $500,000, right? I mean, it's only half of 1 million. Like, it's half. I mean, what, $100,000? Whatever, but it's only half of 1 million. Really, when you think about it, it's only half, guys. Well, that's not much.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. I don't know if there is a mainstream AAA game that has gotten
Sonic players don't want good games.
Much hate as Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, and rightfully so. It's a terrible game.
Just Sonic players will cope to the high heavens, and they will be so happy when they get a serviceable game. Listen, Sonic is cool. I love Sonic. Sonic's great. Sonic players, they've been downtrodden on, I'll say. There's so many bad Sonic games that they'll cope and be like, no, the Sonic game is really, really good. I promise it's really, really good. I fucking love Sonic Adventure 2. I love it. It has so many problems. I love it. I think it's probably a bad game. It's probably a bad game. I like it, but it's probably a really bad game. I don't know if you could argue that the original Sonic Adventure is a really good game. You could like it, but I don't know if you could argue that it's a really good game, though.
One of the worst things ever dumped out, and proof that just throwing money at something doesn't make anything good. This is one of those games that went through a lot of changes during its development process, and rather than just, you know, make a Sonic the Hedgehog game,
I feel like everyone should at least watch someone play this on YouTube because Sonic games are so funny to watch YouTubers play. Like, I personally have watched Game Grumps and play Sonic Boom and Sonic 06. It's great content. There's so much to make fun of. And don't get me wrong, Sonic enjoyers, with your Sonic profile pictures of your original Sonic OC characters, of Shadow Blades, who is an extra cool Sonic who wears an eye patch and has a super long sword and cannot be defeated by anyone. I think that you're cool and valid, and I think that's okay to love Sonic. I love Sonic too. You know, I played a lot of Sonic games. When I was a kid, I played even the GBA one that no one knows about. But there's a lot of so many bad Sonic games out there.
They kind of aspired to make us all scratch our heads. But they did so all the way to the bank. It took a couple of months, and it sold 870,000 units and got itself into the Xbox 360 Platinum Hits line, and eventually ended up selling 2.6 million copies.
Damn.
It's probably sold more by now. That figure is actually from 2017.
This game is infamous,
though. I don't know how much nostalgia purchasing people are doing of that game, but still, that's way too many. If you've ever played that game, it's so
no
much
use.
Too many. It did not deserve that many sales. You know, I could go into a long range.
Doesn't Sonic like fall in love with this human princess? Listen, I'm not one to judge people's relationships. I would never do that. But like that's bestiality.
About what was wrong with this game.
Don't they like kiss or something?
A lot of times at this point, and maybe we'll do it again. But I think it can all be summed up in a single word: wink.
Spoiler alert, guys. Sorry, spoiler warning. Oh, we're like sleeping beautying this. Come on, guys. Oh, that's a fucking hedgehog, guys. Come on. That's a hedgehog. Now, that was number 4 on the list, but I want you to go over and check out the rest of the video yourself so you can see the other ones. I think it's entertaining, and I also want to have people go over to the original video and show a bit of love to the original creators, because Gameranx makes these really good lists, and I love reacting to them, and I love talking about them, but I also want to support their channel too, so please go over, show them a lot of love, subscribe to their channel. They definitely deserve it. There's a lot of cool videos going up on their channel, and if you want to see more of my dumb face, then you can subscribe to more patterrz as well.